So, World War One then. I'm sure that I've played one of those games before. Battlefield 1, I think it was called, something like that. It would be hard to not mention BF1 when talking about a World War One game. But the game we're looking at today couldn't be any further apart from that in terms of its design and nature. And if you like games such as Squad, Postscriptum, or Hell Let Loose, then Beyond the Wire is going to be right up your alley. Beyond the Wire is designed to be a slower paced tactical shooter from a small developer going by the name of Redstone Interactive. But the reason that it caught my eye was because they released an awesome gameplay trailer recently that did feel a bit BF1 at times, so I thought that I would give it a go. In this game, it goes like this. One shot from a rifle and you're dead. You've got limited ammo, limited movement, and a limited user interface. Don't expect to be told when you've scored a kill either. You just get used to it after a while and you know. For anyone jumping in for the first time, I'd recommend paying close attention to what team you're on so you can look out for a certain uniform, because team kills are very prominent in this game, certainly with the time that I spent playing it. But that of course is due to some part in the trench warfare nature of the game. And I mentioned Squad and Postscriptum earlier, and unsurprisingly, the core mechanics of those games are very similar to this one, and they should be because the core code base is actually the same. Squad is built off the Unreal Engine, and both Postscriptum and Beyond the Wire base their games off of the base code of Squad. This has a lot of benefits despite the clear differences in setting. Squad is a modern shooter, however Beyond the Wire takes us back to World War One, and utilizing the Squad backend means that your starting point of your game is already quite strong. Features such as in-depth ballistics, soldier animations, sound design, to name but a few, are already at a good level. And then you just need to build your own game settings, maps, weapons, and everything else around all of that. Of course, it's not quite as simple as that, but Offworld Industries, I think, have a good product in Squad, and these different era offshoots just prove that. There are currently 3 maps and 3 factions in the game: Frizz, Anson Court, and Zonnebeck. All 3 have a different aesthetic to them too. Frizz is a more open map with quite a lot of buildings linked by tree coverage and trenches. I believe it's based on the Somme River region. Anson Court, on the other hand, is the Argonne Forest, so that's mostly trees and trenches with lots of terrain cover from explosions. And lastly, Zonnebeck covers the Battle of Passchendaele, so lots of eerily dead trees and scorched earth. I played Anson Court at night too, which made the immersion even more noticeable, and it's akin to a horror game. It's quite scary running through the forest, just hearing bullets whiz past you, and then that moment of panic when eventually you run into an enemy. And I think that's the most impressive thing with Beyond the Wire at the moment: the immersion. The goal in most of the modes is to attack or defend, and moving together with your squad is key. But even when you're running on your own and there's machine gun fire in the distance or artillery fire going off all around you, it rarely draws you in. And just a word on the factions in the game too. Right now we've got the Germans, Americans and French forces, with a view to adding the British very soon. I played and covered the release version of Squad recently, so I feel like I've got a pretty good idea of how the games compare. Of course, like I said, they're set in a different era, but it's definitely noticeable how much quicker you get into the action in Beyond the Wire compared to Squad. And at times it does feel like a more accessible version of that game. And I think mainly this boils down to the map sizes. Some of the maps on Squad are substantial, and that's by design. It's not to say that the maps in Beyond the Wire are small though, because they're not. It's still 50 versus 50 players, but I felt that when I died, I was able to get back into the action pretty fast. And I died a lot, so I should know. In terms of the weaponry on offer here, you can expect a nice mixture. Because of the setting, you're going to find a lot of weapons that are single shot bolt action, but there are of course machine guns too. I tried out the Shosho, the Lebel and a couple of others, and you have to play really smart when using either a sniper rifle or a machine gun, because you only get a limited amount of stamina when sprinting, but that same stamina is used to steady your aim. So if you sprint for a reasonable distance and then you try to shoot, your aim is going to be incredibly inaccurate. As you can imagine, that's not exactly ideal if you're a sniper. And this is the same for all of the weapons, to be fair, but I found it more obvious with snipers and machine guns. The upside to the machine guns though is that you can use the bipod to help you out. There are also pistols, shotguns and of course melee weapons. I had a bit of fun with the melee club and I have to say it was quite satisfying. The reality is that World War One was absolutely brutal. It involved a ton of melee combat, and I think that Beyond the Wire is doing a good job of showcasing that. Bit of feedback though, there were some negatives just for a second, and one of them is a frustrating one for me because so many games of this type suffer from it, and it's the performance. I can't be too unfair because it is early access, and despite running on the Squad code base, we have to accept that it will need time to be fully optimized. It has to be said though, at times the performance did certainly crunch for me, and I'm running on a 3090 and a top-end i9 clocked at 5 GHz. It's more of an optimization thing, and this was most noticeable when you're going around built-up areas with lots of players. Artillery shells, other effects going off all the time, well, they didn't help either. It's the sort of thing that can be worked on and improved in time, but it does sometimes make aiming quite frustrating when you're getting those big frame drops and stutters regularly. I did notice a few other smaller bugs with audio and animations too, although nothing too serious, but there was some funky physics going on from time to time. Vaulting was a bit dubious at times too. All things that I'm sure will be fixed as it is early access, so I won't worry about it too much. I have to say though that the menu system and the settings were really great though, so that's another plus. Wrapping things up, Beyond the Wire has been released into early access, so if you choose to buy it, you're not going to get a finished product, and you should know that. And I don't want to alarm you, but Squad was in early access for over 5 years, but fear not, Beyond the Wire is scheduled to release sometime in 2022. That's possibly up to 2 years of development to improve the game and add content, and perhaps even a next-gen console release. But I think the content thing is really important and key for me. Sure, Squad was in development for a long time, but they had a lot of kinks to iron out, and when you jump into that game now, there is just so much content to get stuck into, and if Beyond the Wire is to succeed, I think they'll need a strong roadmap for new features and new maps and additions along the way. Just over a week ago though, the development team did an AMA on Reddit covering a few points that players asked about. For example, they said that they're currently focusing on representing the western front of World War I, so areas of Ypres, Meuse Argonne, the Somme, etc. There are currently no plans to cover the eastern front. There will also be a weather system in place, but it will only include rain for the time being. When it comes to the vehicles, there are currently none in the game as the devs want to focus on the infantry experience first before they start adding in vehicles, and I do think that that makes sense. They also made a point of mentioning level design implications and network resources, and having played the 3 maps for myself, I do wonder if vehicles would really improve the experience. We'll have to wait and see. I'd love to see a planned roadmap for the game too, much like Squad have recently done, even with a rough ETA of planned and possible features, but maybe the dev team aren't ready yet to commit to anything, and I can appreciate that. It has to be said though, it's a great time to be a tactical shooter fan. Right now you've got at least 3 great games spread across different eras to choose from, and I did have some fun with Beyond the Wire. It certainly takes skill to play successfully, but it's perhaps a bit easier to jump into when compared to Squad, which could be a big selling point of the game. And of course, teamwork is key. If you can get in a decent squad and communicate, you'll have a much better time here. And that's all for today, guys. Thank you for watching. Do let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I just wanted to put this in the end here too. Today marks 9 years of myself on YouTube. I uploaded my first video on the 27th of October 2011, so nearly coming up to a full decade, and I can't thank you guys enough for completely changing my life and supporting me every step of the way. With that said, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.